The damaged center section poses problems for any measuring system. Like I said, there isn't the magic bullet for that.
If we see distortion in a center section, one of the first things we need to look at is obviously it's not just going to be in length, it's also going to be in height, and it's also going to affect the width. We're looking at vehicles today three-dimensional. We need to take a really good examination of that vehicle, because typically today, with how vehicles are built today with crash in mind when they're designed, if that center section is compromised, most of the time that vehicle is not going to be repaired.
A side hit is usually the hardest one to repair. It doesn't seem like it would be, but when you affect that center section, you affect the entire vehicle.
Those first 4 points, like we talked about earlier, that's where we mount the vehicle to the machine and hold it up. So if our center section's damaged and those aren't in the right spot, and you have no adjustment to your fixtures, using a fixture bench on something like that can be a real challenge.
The one thing we don't want to do is say, oh, it looks like the rear section doesn't have any damage, let's create our base off of that. The center section is still our base. That's where we start with, even though there's damage there. What we would do is we'd hang attachments in the reference points that are the primary control points on the vehicle that we suggest. If for some reason we can't get one in an area, we can use an alternative, or we can do a 3-point measurement and only use 3 points in the center section to calibrate the measuring system to the vehicle and identify your height, length, and width dimensions off of those 3 points. And what we do is we'd measure that damage point and monitor it during the repair process and make sure that it's going back into the correct location. And then we can change that from a 3-point to a 4-point once that gets back to where it needs to be, or just continue in a 3-point repair.
We have 3 choices to be able to base our reference from. We have, is the vehicle hit in the front? And we'll specify points that they should use if the vehicle's hit in the front. Is the vehicle hit in the rear? Again, we have specified points. Or we have what's called free measure, to where you can go in and physically choose the points that you want to be able to base the measuring system from. Sometimes you need to use the free measure because you may have a vehicle that's hit severely in one side, that part of the center section has been affected, and we may want to start with 3 measuring points to be able to clarify what we have and then find a better suited area after the repair is started.
What will happen if you've got one that's hit severe and creates what we always refer to as a banana effect, you may have both points on one side that are damaged. What we still want to do is use those as our base points to start off with, and we may have to bring those back until they line up to really identify where everything else is at. But we've got the center section's your center section, it's your starting point. You have to build a good base to work off of, no matter what. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to get the end sections to line up to where they need to be. Because you could have a square front section, but if the center section is not square, you don't have a square car.
If you got a car that's completely bananaed, so the front's not in the right place, the back's not in the right place, and the center section's wrong too, you know, all bets are off at that point. That becomes a very difficult car to measure up front until you can get the center of it square.